This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, the world's still reeling from this attack at Bondi Beach, killing 15 community members, Jews celebrating Hanukkah, and of course, there's talk of action on gun reform around the world. That includes here in Canada. Canada's Minister of Justice and Attorney General Sean Fraser joining us in this episode of the show amid conversations between Alberta, other provinces, and the RCMP around contract policing. Will Alberta have a provincial police force by 2032 or earlier? What about violence against women and girls, gender-based violence? We've been talking about it a lot on the show as we have supported the YWCA's Rose campaign. We'll get into that with the Justice Minister. Alberta invoking the Notwithstanding clause to pass 4 different bills protecting them from the courts. What does the federal minister think about that? There's a lot of ground to cover in this episode that is presented by our friends at Hanson Distillery. Right here on the table, we have this bottle of mint chocolate cream liqueur. This is a limited time offering from our friends at Hanson. This is distilled right here in Alberta's capital city. You can find them online at hansondistillery.com. A couple of limited edition seasonal releases I want to make sure are on your radar. That mint chocolate cream liqueur, which we're loving here, smooth, cool, and pure holiday indulgence, plus their gingerbread cookie cream liqueur, like Grandma's cookie jar if Grandma spiked it. For those of you living the vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free reality, they have a wonderful maple brown sugar liqueur, and then, of course, the 5- and 7-year aged versions of their Northern Eyes whiskey. You can find this as a gift or maybe to treat yourself. Anywhere fine spirits are sold, you can visit them at the distillery. If you happen to be in Edmonton on 174th Street, 111th Ave, just north of Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West, and you can always shop Hanson online at hansondistillery.com. Let's get right to it. He's Canada's Minister of Justice and Attorney General, the Honourable Sean Fraser, joining us in this episode of the show, looking like a good Canadian boy in his holiday plaid. Minister, it's nice to see you. Where are you checking in from today?
Look, we've returned home from Ottawa and find myself in my kitchen table here getting ready for the holidays, but happy to tune in for the chat today. Thanks for having me.
Well, you got it. We're grateful to have you here. So regardless of whether you're on the clock, so to speak, in Ottawa, meeting with cabinet or doing your thing in your home ridings, obviously issues of importance, including tragedies globally, are all over your radar in a number of different contexts. I imagine as a Canadian, as a dad, and obviously as Minister of Justice, when you see something like that attack in Bondi Beach, many factors at play. I won't seek to oversimplify it, but Australia has been known for relatively tight gun legislation for a number of decades. Perhaps you could say the same thing about Canada, but this is certainly something that the federal government, the Liberal government, has committed to working on, that gun reform. How does this story land with you as Justice Minister specifically?
Look, more than as Justice Minister, but just as a human being, to see hate-motivated terror attacks carried out against the community is just, it's heart-wrenching to watch. These innocent victims having their lives taken too soon as they sought to take part in their celebration of their culture, their faith, is just terrible. Let's not pretend that we're immune in Canada to acts of mass violence or to acts of hate. We know in my home province all too well what it's like to live through the mass casualty that we experienced in Nova Scotia a few years ago. And we see whether it's attacks in our grocery stores, harassment on our campuses, intimidation outside our religious institutions. Hate, sadly, is prevalent across Canada. There's no silver bullet to this. We need to reform our criminal legislation. We need to address gun violence, but we also need to go upstream to ensure we're building healthier people to help build safer communities. This is a tragedy of unspeakable magnitude, but we need to be there for our neighbors and ensure that we're taking care of some of the challenges that we see at home.
We've been hearing from Jewish community leaders in emails, most of them, to be honest with you, requesting either anonymity or that they not actually be read on the show. They're writing in to inform the host. so to speak, and they're talking to us about concerns that they have, not just through Hanukkah or Jewish high holidays, but at events, a big local festival in Edmonton. Actually, it's our biggest one, called Heritage Festival, that brings different ethnic and cultural groups together for celebrations of food and dance and the like. One of our community members in a position of leadership within Edmonton's Jewish community has said this is the exact type of scenario, talking about Bondi Beach, the exact type of scenario that they worry about when it comes to hate speech or legislation targeting hate crimes in Canada. Is it your estimation that there's a deficit right now in legislation? Is this something that's near the top of your list?
Look, we're actively in the throes of trying to adopt the Combating Hate Act in Parliament right now. Unfortunately, it's being obstructed by the Conservative Party at committee. But the motivation was to address these very real concerns. Look, every Canadian should be shocked by the frequency with which the Jewish community is targeted by hate crimes in this country. It's been on the rise in the last few years. You see the National Holocaust Memorial defaced. You're seeing synagogues desecrated with hate symbols. You're seeing people attacked in their communities. We need to ensure that if we're going to get the most out of this experiment we call Canada, that everybody has an opportunity to celebrate their identity, to be who they are. And the Jewish community has been facing these rising incidents of hate. This piece of legislation will seek to better protect people's ability to attend and participate in cultural activities at their religious institutions. It will more severely punish crimes that are actually motivated by hate. My hope is that we can get all parties together to support communities who've been affected by hate crimes, including protection against anti-Semitic behavior and violence. So absolutely, it's not just at the top of my list. Legislation is making its way through Parliament as we speak.
Candidly, where do you see it manifesting itself? Like where do you see sort of the biggest when we talk about radicalization, when we talk about the sharing of ideas or the hate, the harassment that people are experiencing? A lot of times people are talking about seeing it online. Many times we see it in real life, so to speak, as well, outside community centers or synagogues or daycares or what have you. Is this a multi-pronged approach? Can you talk to us how you think effective legislation covers the gamut?
Yeah, well, look, the divide between the real world and the online environment are increasingly indivisible. The hate that we are seeing start in the comments section, finding their ways onto threads on different social media platforms, are finding an audience who's predisposed to be searching out that kind of material. People are starting to see that they have a community where they share the common thread of hatred towards another group of people based on their identity, not on something that they've done. When those echo chambers start to inform the worldview that people adopt as they are thinking through these things in their community, you see people develop a willingness to actually act on what was previously hateful thoughts. The legislation is going to offer clearer protection, certainly outside synagogues and mosques and temples and churches. But we've also, through the consultation process, determined that we needed to take action on hate more broadly, because it's not limited to the doorsteps of our religious institutions. We're seeing attacks in our communities. You're seeing people who are afraid to show who they actually are in public for fear that they're going to be subjected to violence. That's why we've created the standalone crime of hate that would layer on top of other criminal offenses to recognize that it's not just the individual victim who's impacted, but that hatred actions reverberate through the entirety of a community. So we think that it's part of the solution. It's going to offer real protection. But we know that we have to work with organizations on the ground who are closer to these institutions, who understand why they are facing particular risks, and to address them in a more nuanced way. But the criminal legislation that's going through the process is certainly part of the path forward.
Can you, folks this week have been wondering whether or not there was some friction between your ministry and the Prime Minister's office after C9 this anti-hate bill. You're chuckling. For the folks on the podcast, you're chuckling. I'll hand the conch to you in a second. But this had stalled in a way after you had reportedly brokered a deal. That's what Mr. Blanchette said with the BQ to remove a religious exemption from Canada's hate speech laws. People are kind of now wondering on the status of the whole thing. What's the scoop?
Yeah, so that exemption was the subject of a lot of conversations between myself, members of the bloc, also between myself and members in the Prime Minister's office. And we're in a minority parliament, so although we didn't start out with this proposal that this long-standing exemption would be removed, that was something that made it possible to see a path forward for the bill to survive. Committee members have now adopted that proposal from the bloc, and it puts the legislation in a place where it's likely going to be a feature of the new legislation. Again, it's the committee who has conduct of the bill right now, not the government or the minister. But there's a lot of misinformation going on around that exemption. It's not going to criminalize faith. It's not going to prevent anybody from reading their religious texts. In fact, because this provision was put in before the charter existed, the freedom of religion and conscience protected by the charter will offer substantially similar protections. But ultimately, the lessons that I take from the great religions of the world that form part of communities in Canada aren't willfully promoting hate. This defense, the exemption, so to speak, would only kick in after somebody has committed a hate crime by willfully promoting hate against another identifiable group of people. There is not a community of faith that stands for such values that I'm aware of in Canada.
Been interesting to see here in our neck of the woods, in our home province of Alberta, the Premier under this the act. This is the Alberta Sovereignty Within a United Canada Act. Is essentially, I mean, the message she's communicating to Albertans and to law enforcement, for that matter, is that there will be an onus to refuse to participate in any sort of a federal gun buyback program. We talked to your boss. We talked to the Prime Minister about this back in September. He says, listen, this is voluntary. He says this is not a gun seizure. Nonetheless, this is a story that's made big waves in Alberta. They're referring to it as the castle law idea from down in the United States. What's the federal perspective on Alberta's Premier's refusal to participate?
So, look, we're talking about two different but related subjects when you say castle laws and the gun buyback issue. My own sense, when you look at the Prime Minister's statement about the voluntary nature of this, is that we don't want to deny any Canadians, Albertans in particular, the opportunity to have fair compensation in exchange for guns that are being returned that have made their way onto a prohibited list of firearms. We're not talking about interfering with people's ability to hunt or to sport shoot. We're talking about weapons that were designed to kill human beings. And look, for what it's worth, I grew up at the site of my grandfather's old hunting camp. The first time I fired a firearm, I was probably 9 years old. Maybe that wasn't appropriate at the time, but this is not some predisposition against firearms generally. It's just about public safety and ensuring that we have appropriate firearms being used for appropriate purposes in communities. When it comes to the position that the provincial government's taken, I just hope that they don't prevent those who wish to take part in the program from receiving fair compensation. On the other item that you mentioned, the castle laws, I think it's important to understand that Canadians who do have a home invader, who are facing some real threat, absolutely have the right to defend themselves in their home, including the use of lethal force if it's reasonable in the circumstances, because you got to protect yourself. What we want to avoid when it comes to some of the commentary we've seen around that particular piece is this idea that you have a shoot-first approach to self-defense laws in this country. We've seen tragic circumstances play out in other jurisdictions, including when children are playing Nicky Nicky Nine Door, having a homeowner mistake them for a home invader without actually being in danger, ending the life of an innocent child. So two separate issues, both important, but we hope to work with governments at different levels along the way to have a unified approach when it comes to public safety.
Yeah, I'm sure you won't be surprised to hear that the two scenarios or the two issues are oftentimes presented together anecdotally from the podium and in regular conversation among everyday Albertans. The notwithstanding clause, for anybody watching politics across the country, they've seen it invoked on 4 separate occasions here in the province of Alberta. Those that support the government doing it say that it's a way to fast track important legislation. The detractors say that it flies in the face of the spirit of what it was intended for. As Attorney General, as Minister of Justice, what's your perspective?
Well, look, we're obviously litigating at the Supreme Court of Canada right now on the appropriate limitations of the notwithstanding clause. So I'll reserve my comments on the specifics of individual cases that might find themselves before the courts at some point in time. But I've got real concerns about the willingness with which we're seeing governments resort to the notwithstanding clause. Keep in mind that just because you cite the notwithstanding clause, it doesn't mean that you're not violating somebody's rights. The notwithstanding clause doesn't say this doesn't constitute a violation of the Constitution or the rights protected in the Charter. It says, notwithstanding the fact that those rights are guaranteed, a specific law is allowed to operate. When you see governments in particular invoking the notwithstanding clause before a court has made that ruling, it communicates at best in indifference as to whether the laws we adopt erode the rights that our citizens are entitled to by virtue of their being Canadian citizens. That's a problem. We don't envision that the downfall of Canada will take place over the next number of weeks or months or under any sitting government federally or provincially. But I worry that a generation from now, some future government empowered by an erosion of our rights today, is going to chip away at our rights and our institutions that really maintain a democracy in Canada until there's nothing left to them. We need to stand resolutely in defense of rights, including when the notwithstanding clause is invoked against vulnerable communities. And I'm very concerned about the frequency with which we're seeing different governments of different partisan affiliations move in this direction in order to avoid scrutiny of the courts and the public.
Before we run out of time with you, Minister Sean Fraser joining us in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West, I want to ask you about the future of policing in Alberta. Strikes me as up in the air as this government has indicated an openness and perhaps even a desire to establish an Alberta police force. The contract with the RCMP is up for renewal in 2032. For context for our audience, Alberta covers about 70% of the cost of that policing. The federal government covers about 30% of the cost. Do you have a vested interest in the RCMP handling contract policing in Alberta, or can you see different scenarios? Where's your head at on it?
Look, my belief on this is really informed by the perspective that you got to work with people who are closest to the ground to make decisions about something as local in nature as public safety. This is an opportunity for us to work with the provincial government of Alberta, which has been something, notwithstanding my comments on the notwithstanding clause a moment ago. The partnership between Canada and Alberta has been particularly fruitful over the last number of weeks and months. We need to make sure that we're good partners in this conversation. That we actually discuss with our counterparts provincially what's going to work best for local communities, and then work, of course, with my colleague, the Minister for Public Safety, to identify what the appropriate path forward is going to be. But that's going to evolve through conversations over the next number of years. They have begun already with conversations at the recent meeting of ministers responsible for justice and public safety hosted in Kananaskis this fall. And as part of a united framework around community safety, figuring out the best path forward is going to require extensive conversations and consultation with the provincial government to figure out how we can be good partners to ensure that the safety outcomes communities are asking for are delivered in full.
Before we let you go, Minister, I've got to ask you about the two recent floor crossings, two new team members for you with Mr. D'Entremont out of your home province. And then, of course, we saw an interesting one out of Ontario as well with Michael Ma. Many are speculating that more could be coming that would bump this government into a majority position, as if I need to tell you. I'm curious to know what it's been like around the cabinet table behind the scenes, what the change in the team dynamic has meant, and perhaps I'll invoke the word optimism, where your optimism is that this landscape could change either before New Year's Eve or early into the new year. What's shaking?
Well, look, I won't project on who might join the team.
Oh, come on!
The door's open, but and look, there's a number of people who've expressed their frustration to me personally and to my colleagues over the last number of months, and frankly over the last number of years. But what I take from it is not excitement about the prospect of a minority, but that it's a vote of confidence in the job that the government's doing under the new Prime Minister. When you see people who were always middle of the road, centrist in their politics, business-oriented, see that the Prime Minister is largely pursuing an agenda that makes sense to their constituents. We're focused on on creating good paying jobs, making life more affordable, making sure that we maintain a sense of social responsibility to vulnerable community members. This is the agenda that Canadians voted for during the recent federal election, and it seems that a number of MPs who would have affiliated with a progressive Conservative party have been frustrated under Mr. Poilievre's leadership and see an opportunity to be part of a team that's trying to pursue the interests of a united Canada rather than a leader who's made a career on selling fear and division to create a path for himself to get to the Prime Minister's office. So to me, it's a vote of confidence in the job that the Prime Minister's doing more than it is a cause to be excited about the political fortunes of the Liberal Party.
What do you say to people, though, that say, listen, like, this is 6 months out from a federal election. This is not what politics is supposed to be all about. There should either be a by-election or they should sit as independents. People have a stench in their mouth around the whole thing. What do you say to people that say that floor crossing should have no place in politics?
Well, look, my view is different, and I can be consistent with having not registered complaints about the inappropriateness when it cut in the other direction a few years ago.
Sure.
But my own sense is that our system is designed very explicitly around the idea that you have local representatives. We don't live in a republic where we elect a president. We live in a system of responsible government based on the Westminster parliamentary democracy that we have taken from the United Kingdom, and it's essential that people have local MPs. And if the party to which you used to belong no longer reflects the values of your constituents or pursues agenda items that are misaligned with their interests, members should be free to vote how they want to support the person to become Prime Minister that they think is best to do the job. So philosophically, I don't have an objection to it. Look, when we've lost a member previously to another party, sure, you're disappointed, but you don't start slamming the system that's delivered peace and prosperity to Canada for more than 150 years. To me, we've got two thoughtful individuals who've chosen to join our team on the basis of the agenda we're pursuing and the difference that we're going to make for the people that they've been elected to represent. So to me, if there are others thinking on it over the holidays, know that we're more than happy to take your call.
Minister, thanks for doing this and wishing you and your family all the best through the holiday season. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Good to chat.
Merry Christmas to you as well. That's Canada's Attorney General, Minister of Justice, Sean Fraser, joining us on the show. I see from Stephen. Stephen was enthusiastic right away. Johnny, in our live chat, powered by Park Power, he just says, yeah, Minister in plaid. Stephen was pretty happy to see him in plaid. The technical director of this show also rocking holiday plaid today, your winter plaid. Your Canadian uniform.
It seems like a day for it. We're getting close to the holidays. You got to put on the red and the green. And
someone will accuse you of partisanship, of virtue signaling for wearing red plaid on a day with a Liberal minister.
How dare you?
On the show. I feel like plaid is nonpartisan.
I always get texts outside of the show from just friends who watch, and I got the same text when we had the premiere in last. They were like, "Oh, you're wearing dark blue pants, a blue shirt, and a blue tie."
That's right.
And UCP is in the house. What are you doing? And I'm like, hey, I don't think about these things that much. I have 10 minutes in the morning. I just throw on clothes.
I think that blue plaid works. I mean, red is kind of don't worry, guys. We'll sink our teeth into meaningful stuff here in a second. But red is kind of the classic like the Alberta plaid look. But I think blue plaid is a highly underrated look.
I think red and black, what I'm wearing right now, Canada in general, but Alberta.
That's the lumberjack
This
look.
is like an Alberta outfit. This is like, standard issue when you come here.
Dave, also in our live chat, with a fascinating question. This feels like the type of question that a university professor would put in front of you, maybe a law professor in particular, and you could debate. I am ill-equipped to answer this question. That doesn't mean a talk show can't sink its teeth into it. So shout out to you, Dave, in our live chat powered by Park Power. He says, what's the difference between freedom of technology and freedom of expression? Interesting question. From a constitutional standpoint, from a legal standpoint, I am not equipped to answer that. But I would say this. What's that idea of like I'm gonna butcher the quote, but people say something like, what is it, like the freedom of your fist ends where the freedom of my nose begins. You know, that kind of idea. I'm butchering the quote, but it's kind of that idea around freedom of expression. People talk about freedom of speech or freedom of expression. What does that represent? And people will oftentimes point out, candidly, from a civilian perspective, freedom of expression or freedom of speech is not freedom from consequences. I think, when you talk about freedom of technology, I'd be curious to know exactly what that means. But regardless of the technology you're using or the platform you're using, how you're using it and what you're doing with it are what would be under the scrutiny of law enforcement, laws of the land, right? So freedom of technology, if you're, for example, spreading, and I'm not saying that this is what Dave's saying, it was just Dave threw that question out as kind of some musing in our live chat, and I thought it was interesting. I'm not saying that let me put this in the words of Lightning Smith in our live chat, who responds, says freedom of speech and or freedom of expression does not mean you can say whatever you want. It means you can criticize the government and the government won't come after you. In the context of hate speech or hate crimes or talking about groups that are oftentimes targeted for their faith or their ethnicity, their country of origin or other reasons, including the Jewish community, on the heels of what happened in Bondi Beach, just still mind-blowing tragedy. This is a conversation that more and more people are having, and we'd welcome your thoughts on this to talk at ryanjesperson.com. We'll get into more of what you have to say on the live chat. We'll get to your comments. Many of you posting feedback on our social media channels. You can follow us at Real Talk RJ. You can always send us an email to talk at ryanjesperson.com. Plus, while it's not a sports show and it's not a hockey show, we do have to talk about last night's tilt between the Edmonton Oilers and the Pittsburgh Penguins because a few major things happened. And we're just observing here. We got to talk about it. The show talks about what people are talking about, and it will continue thanks to the support of our friends at North Road Investment Council. It's the time of year the team at North Road knows where a lot of us are focusing our attention on the importance of giving. That's what December's all about, right? Well, if you're a charitable person, instead of giving cash to causes that you care about this month, consider donating appreciated investments like stocks or ETFs, mutual funds that have grown in value. When you do this, the capital gains tax on those appreciated securities is totally exempt if you're donating them directly. That means more of your money to the charity and less of the money to the CRA. Plus, personal donors can access generous federal and provincial tax credits. Business owners can receive strong corporate tax deductions. All of these are designed to reward meaningful giving. At North Road Investment Council, this team wants to help you, investors, make the most of these rules so your generosity can go further. Learn more about intelligent giving strategies by reaching out to Marshall Carey and the North Road Investment Council team at northroadic.com. While we're talking about philanthropy and charitable giving, we want to make sure that the Royal Alexandra Hospital's on your radar. Through this year, they're celebrating 125 years at the Royal Alex, a remarkable legacy. Every Tuesday here on Real Talk, we're featuring stories of the echoes of the Alex. These are lives, families that have been transformed, in many cases sustained, through a century and a quarter at the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation. You can learn more by visiting royalalex.org. And if you visit royalalex.org/125 years, you can check out a wonderful gift-giving opportunity. Someone in your life who maybe had a big moment at the Royal Alex, maybe somebody who worked and then retired from there or who works there right now. They have a beautiful hardcover book, a commemorative book celebrating the history of the Royal Alex. We encourage you to pick that up today or consider a donation to the foundation at royalalex.org. If you're going to be hosting this holiday season and you want to make sure you're spending more time with your guests, less time in the kitchen, missing out on all the laughter, may we suggest the classic Christmas dinner box from our friends at Catering by Friesen Brothers. You can order it today at cateringbyfriesen.com. This is one you can customize, but even if you take it as it comes, you can feed 4 people for just $99 plus GST. This is a turkey dinner with all the fixins. They have vegan options, they have add-on options, but for $99, 4 people will enjoy roasted turkey, that's white and dark meat, plus roasted baby potatoes, all the toppings, sour cream cream bacon bits, creamy dill carrots, tray buns from Mother Dough Bread Co., cranberry sauce and turkey gravy. You pop it in the oven, you warm it up, and it's ready to go. You can order today at cateringbyfriesen.com. And before we get back to our live chat, I want to remind those of you that, 2026, you're going to start looking at your goals for the future, start plotting out maybe your return to the job market, whatever it is. If post-secondary factors in, you owe it to yourself to take 2 seconds today to check out athabascau.ca. That's about all the time it'll take for you to recognize the AU Advantage, world-class accredited online degrees and courses designed so you can continue your studies at a pace that works for you. Your only commute is to your device. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of programs and courses, including the AU MBA, plus student financial supports and more. You can read all about it today at athabascau.ca. It's great to see Johnny in our live chat promoting Real Talk YouTube channel membership. You can do that by checking out the Real Talk Ryan Jesperson YouTube channel. 3 different levels: Real Talkers, Real Dealers, and the Real VIPs. Plus, we have our Patreon supporters. You can visit ryanjesperson.com, click on the Connect link to learn more about our Patreon. All of our subscribers, Johnny, through the YouTube channel memberships and Patreon, will be receiving an invitation for our December 23rd, our annual Real Talk Holiday VIP Zoom party, which is something that we've done every single year that this show has been in existence. It'll start just like every other show at 8:30. You'll receive a private Zoom link to participate. We're going to have some trivia, some Q&A, some games. It's going to be a great time. That's coming up on Tuesday, December 23rd. So mark your calendars. That'll follow our final public show of the 2025 year. That'll be the 22nd of December, Monday, with Supriya Dwivedi.
Weather permitting.
Weather permitting. Oh, man, right now it's bonkers. It's crazy.
I'm dreaming.
I know that we have people listening from across Canada and beyond, 37 countries last month, by the way, no big deal. But in our neck of the woods, they call this an Alberta Clipper, and we're about to be buried. I know the name of it's amazing. The Alberta Clippers would actually be an amazing team name if you think about it. But 30 centimeters, a foot of snow we're expecting in the next 24 hours.
I love Alberta because, I love Alberta for a lot of reasons. But one is, we know how to prepare, And now that I've been here since 2008, I go out last night. I'm like, okay, it's going to snow. Today's going to suck. Thursday's going to suck. It might snow some more. Got to go fill up gas. Got to fill up the washer fluid. Make sure, you're comfortable. You don't have to stop anywhere if you have to drive. And I go to the gas station. Everyone's doing the same thing. Everyone's grabbing, filling up their washer fluid, putting 2 in the back, getting their tank full, cleaning off the car. They've all got winter boots, scarves, toques on. I was walking today 2 blocks from work just after parking my car. And the darndest thing happened, Ryan. It's quite blustery out today, as you said when you came in. Very chilly. And me, I never wear a hat or toque. You know that, right? Unless it's
Well, you don't want to mess up that fabulous air.
You can't before the show, right? So I'm out there, and I'm waiting to cross the street in front of that fabulous new bike lane that I'm always talking about, a block up from us, from Rogers Place. And there's a lady stopped at the light, and she rolls down her window. She's like, "Here. Do you want a toque?" She's holding an Oilers toque.
Amazing.
She's like, "Your ears are going to fall off your head." Because it is. It's windy. I'm like, oh, my God. Wait for the light to turn. But it gave me a little bit of I don't know if it's the holidays or what it is. Then I'm like, you know what?
She was concerned for your well-being.
It's also just Alberta. We drive around with extra toques and offer them to people.
I have 3 of them in my car.
Because you could die out here, kids.
Yeah, no kidding. But actually, people could. It's, just a bit of a... Hey, shout out to our friends, by the way, at Boyle Street Community Services, one of the biggest nonprofit. I'll call them I don't know what they call themselves, but a frontline outreach, a street outreach, basically, opening their new King Thunderbird Center this week, which was a big deal. You guys probably remember this story. This was the one where they had a deal with OEG, with the Oilers Entertainment Group, and they kind of basically were jettisoned out of their initial location, which was right next to the Oilers Church of Hockey, to Rogers Place. And then they got into a nasty legal battle. Remember this? And and people were saying the billionaire Daryl Cates isn't paying his fair share and suing the community group, and it was a tough look. And then remember under Randy Boissonneau, former Liberal cabinet minister,
Randy?
The feds came in, the other Randy.
Oh, okay.
The feds came in. By the way, Randy Boissonneau, I'm not going to get sidetracked. Remind me to talk to you about Randy Boissonneau.
On air?
No, on air. I'll do it on air. And then Randy Boissonneau came in, and I think it was like $20 million or something like that from the feds to make sure that opened in the King Thunderbird Center. I wanted to make sure we mentioned that on the show opening this week, so shout out to them. But yeah, there's a lot happening here. I want to get into the chat. Not everybody loving seeing Sean Fraser on the show, obviously. Wise Kyle, I apologize, I lost the first part of your comment, but he's kind of going through the ministries Fraser's had and just very critical. He says, for example, as Minister of Housing, Fraser oversaw the biggest rise of home prices in Canadian history with the lowest amount of housing starts per capita. Says the guy that came next blamed him for poor policy. There has been a huge rise in home prices in Canada for sure, with the big influx of immigration. That's been part of it. You've also had those in private industry, home builders, saying, I remember Kaylin Anderson from Build, Edmonton Metro, was on the show a while ago saying that big home builders actually hated Mark Carney's federal budget, didn't do enough to incentivize them building. Kyle, I'm not sure everybody's hated the huge rise in home pricing, though, right? It depends on where you are. If you're a homeowner right now, if you're an empty nester looking to sell, you love it. If you're trying to get in, you hate it. Kyle goes on to say, as justice minister, he's had police leaders blaming him for forcing poor policy, says he won't intervene against private property cases in BC between First Nations and the province there. Doesn't sound to me like the worst thing if he's not intervening, but I'll take Kyle's point. He says also as justice minister, he's pushed laws that make speech online and in person, even religious speech, punishable by jail time. He touched on that, his deal with the Bloc Québécois. That from Kyle. Jim was here to hear specifically what the minister had to say about the position that was announced at the UCP convention, and then we took it further than that, beyond that AGM, on gun legislation and the so-called, Sovereign Alberta, Alberta Sovereignty Within a United Canada Act. Danielle Smith saying that law enforcement in Alberta will be instructed to not participate with the RCMP. Go back to our September 10th interview with the Prime Minister if you want to hear him talk about that. That was one. It was like he kicked a hornet's nest. We had the CCFR, the Canadian Center for Firearms Rights, isn't that what it is? Rod Giltaca. I think they sort of called Carney out on that one, and a lot of kind of the right-wing media sites were calling him out on that one, as Carney said, listen, guys, this isn't a gun grab. I'm paraphrasing. He said it's voluntary. He said it's a gun buyback program, and there's been some debate around that and some debate around the accuracy of what Alberta's premier is putting in front of Albertans. The idea that law enforcement will be instructed to kick down your front door and seize your firearms. We've talked about this on the show many times. If you're a regular on the show, you know that. We've talked about it in the live chat and with expert guests. But I was curious to get his take on that and sort of what his sort of up-to-the-minute response would be, his present day response here as we head into the holidays. You always want to get politicians on the it's a moving target, right? As legislation changes, as the dynamic changes, a prime minister or a senior cabinet minister, federally speaking, can say something which will change the perspective of a premier and vice versa. So Alberta and Ottawa are seeing eye to eye on this energy MOU, but not eye to eye on everything else, including the notwithstanding clause. And I'm intrigued by what he had to say about that. It sort of feels like there could be more to come on the notwithstanding clause. Kenzie says hate speech or hate crimes when it comes to legislation here, says this is unnecessary, unconstitutional. There are already laws to prosecute against mass murder. So it sounds to me it's a bit of a brief or an abbreviated comment there, Kenzie. I don't know if you're saying that hate crime legislation is unnecessary. I would respectfully disagree with you on that. I think that there needs to be, and maybe I don't know, maybe I'm in the minority on this, although I doubt it. I think especially with what's just happened in Australia, as a reminder, it's not the only instance, but it's the most recent instance of a faith group or a community, in this case a religious and ethnic community, being targeted specifically because of who they are. And I think added deterrence there and added punitive measures would be supported, generally speaking, by the public. Do you have a feeling on that? I mean, the laws against mass murder, sure, We have legislation there, but I would say that the average person would probably want to see additional deterrence and additional options at sentencing, including for judges. Well, I mean, obviously for judges, but for prosecutors as well. When it comes to these heinous situations where people are targeted outside a place of worship or at a community gathering because of who they are or because of the faith that they celebrate. I don't know. That might be an interesting poll to put up. We could put a poll up like that. Do you support like additional sentencing measures for hate speech or hate crimes? I'd be curious to know where Real Talkers would land on that. Other comments in our live chat powered by Park Power. Ms. Katie wonders, are there guns on the list, on that federal list? And John, you and I have scrolled through this. There's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Says, are there guns on there that shouldn't be? Ms. Katie says that Edmonton lawyer guy on the show said there was. That was Ian Runkle that joined us. I actually really liked that proved to be kind of a polarizing episode. I think, when you're talking about things, for example, like guns, you're going to get people, for whom, to whom guns are very important. I don't know. We talk about how America has this gun culture, but I've seen numbers that gun ownership per capita is actually higher in Canada than the United States, or at least in certain parts of Canada. I know that in Canada, we don't describe it as a so-called gun culture per se, but there's a lot of people that are gun enthusiasts, that are sport shooters, and then a ton of hunters and people for whom their firearms are a tool, like farmers and ranchers that use them on a regular basis, and that's just a fact, like it or not. And people are going to feel differently if you live in the, like in a downtown, tower, and you take the plus 15 or you ride transit to your place of work and then back, and you walk or ride your bike to get groceries. Guns are probably not a regular part of your everyday life. Whereas if you live in a rural community, it's totally different. And so when you're talking about gun ownership, it can be polarizing and divisive, and not everybody sees things eye to eye. And this show's happy to play in that space. I think that's the most important space to be. But Ian Runkle, I thought he represented himself well. I know a lot of you are sort of saying, well, he's arguing in disingenuous fashion, or he's sort of pushing this narrative or these talking points. But you can check out that interview in our archives. You can just Google Ian Runkle Real Talk, and you'll find it. He was specifically talking about, because he's like a sport shooter, right? He's like I don't know if he competes, but he talked to us. He shared with us his personal enthusiasm around specifically sport shooting, and he was taking issue with some of the guns that were on the list and the way that they were being discussed. So you can check that out. It all kind of comes down to the reality or the reminder that conversations that we have on the show oftentimes continue over a series of weeks or months or even years. Kenzie goes on to say, speech is expression. The only things you can't say are direct threats or incitement to violence. Again, there's no need for a hate speech law. We can debate it. I guess it depends on what you're saying. Like, right? I mean, it's kind of a sensitive time to talk about it. When things like this happen, and we talk about how people have been radicalized and how radicalization translates into violence. I don't know. I mean, I get why some people in, certain like faith communities or what have you may feel like, especially if they're being led to believe by leaders in their communities, that like the government's going to, crown prosecutors, police are going to come after you for expressing your religion. I don't know. I guess I can get that. But at the same time, like, what are you saying? That like if we're trying to find, like in your comments, like the fine line between whether or not it's incitement to violence or whether or not it's hate speech. I've seen some tweets that have been shared by people that are really concerning following the Bondi Beach shooting, comments that are being made right here in Canada, people talking about how, these conflicts and relating it to the Israel-Hamas war. We talked the Hamas war. We talked about that with Supriya in our first episode this week, and saying that now this is going to wind up at your front doors. Like when people see comments like that, you go, well, what's that supposed to mean? Is that a comment that should get you arrested and jailed? Probably not. But what does it mean? What is hate speech? Maybe we should have a more frank conversation, a more public conversation about this in Canada. When does it qualify as hate speech? What is hate speech? Does that, conflict with or stand in the way, a hate speech legislation stand in the way of religious expression? What kind of religious expression is it if hate speech legislation would be standing in the way of it? Goramet says Canada has Freeze peaches, not free speeches. People that yell here should defrost their produce quietly at home. Gorma trying to find a moment of levity in all of this. A moment of levity in all of it. Gilles referencing what was really a tragic situation. It was cold-blooded murder in Alberta. Gilles says in Alberta, don't forget, quote, protecting their home. Roger and Anthony Bilodeau killed Métis hunters Jacob Sansom and Maurice Cardinal. They were found guilty of manslaughter and second-degree murder, respectively, protecting their home. Gilles, remind me, weren't they gunned down like on the side of the road, basically on the side of the highway after they were hunting? It was a horrific situation, and may those two rest in peace. I happen to know that Jacob and Maurice are relatives of good friends of this show, and you've shared that with us in past. Warwick wonders what happens when what's going to work best, in quotes, for communities goes against ideological biases. Will this federal government admit it was wrong? Meantime, Jillian says Canada is so lucky to have actual adults in charge. Some of you are debating whether or not doors are going to be kicked down in Alberta for firearm seizures. My guess is that they're not. That's not the sense that I got from the Prime Minister earlier this fall, and that's not the sense. That's not what I took away from what the Justice Minister brought to the table here. Christine says, I think Minister Fraser is a genuine person with integrity. I appreciate that. I don't agree with him on everything, but I do like him. And she says, and I like the plaid. It tells us that he's down to earth. I wonder if he happened to wear the plaid strategically. I don't think so. When we find out he's at home, he had his family's Christmas tree behind him.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be weird if he was in a suit and tie?
Yeah, he's just relaxing.
Would have been a bit weird.
Yeah.
Jillian says, I'm so sick of the complaints about floor crossing. She says, I get so pissed off how we question the left when they follow the rules, but we look away when the right breaks the rules. She says the lower bar for the right is dangerous. I would say this in response to Jill, and this is kind of my general response when it comes to floor crossings. I personally don't like floor crossings. I've said that before. I do recognize them as a tool. I recognize them as a legal option that follows the rules. I would also point out that, aside from some exceptions, Gene Swazdeski, may he rest in peace. Gene is like one of the most widely respected Alberta politicians, former Speaker of the House at the Alberta Legislature in Alberta's history. You're not going to find somebody that says something bad about Gene Swazdeski, and if you do, there's something probably very wrong with that person. You get what I'm saying? But aside from maybe Gene, and some of you will point out other, infrequently occurring examples, floor crossers are rarely reelected. It's typically kind of like a one-term thing. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that the electorate can and does flex its muscle and can convey its displeasure with the move. But Jillian's not wrong. There were floor crossings. There have been floor crossings from the Liberals to the Conservatives. And some of the very Conservatives, including Pierre Poilievre, Vashi Capellos pointed this out the other day. Rosie Barton has pointed this out. They had nothing to say about it. They didn't complain about it when it benefited them because that's not what politicians would do. What politician in their right mind would refuse a floor crosser coming to their party? Although what a move it would be for a leader that didn't necessarily need the floor crosser. But Jillian's right. The electorate has short memories. Politicians pretend to have short memories, but the outcry over the Conservative floor crossers, the two of them, over to the Liberals, is pretty rich considering what happened under Prime Minister Stephen Harper. That said, on the flip side of the coin, I get why Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are super pissed off about it. I totally get it. It's completely changing the landscape. One more dynamically alters the landscape, and I get why they wouldn't love it. Behind the screen also pointing out, the freedom of my fist ends at the rights of your nose. There you go. Thanks for clarifying that one. That's the one. I think that there's wisdom there. Sharon says, I love this, the water cooler segment when we get together and address what else is happening here. Can we talk for a second about what went down at P&G Paints Arena? The Pittsburgh Penguins hosting the Edmonton Oilers in a very unique situation. You don't see this a lot, but the two goaltenders that were swapped, Stuart Skinner and Tristan Jarry, both wearing the masks. They both had their new pads on. Skinner had his new Penguins pads on. Jari had his new Oilers pads on.
Yeah.
But both of them, the mask painting, the custom mask painting
takes a while.
longer.
Yeah.
And so we had here the two goaltenders squaring off against one another.
Mm-hmm.
Skinner still wearing his Oilers mask. Jari still wearing his Penguins mask.
Well, it's also they're comfy with their gear. Some of them, they keep their pads or their stick till they get like 5 or 6 warm-ups
but pretty
in with
interesting
this stuff,
to see, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a strange evening. I'm glad. I almost feel like the Penguins didn't have to play Skinner and the Oilers didn't have to play Jari, but they both did, and they got it over with because, like, ripping that Band-Aid off and just being like, hey, this is the way things are. Let's just get it over with was a good thing. I also thought it was great that Skinner kind of backstage after. I'm not sure if you saw. It was off camera, but now it's all online. He met up with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, kind of celebrated Leon's 1,000th point, and some really heartfelt hugs and like head pats, and you could see them whispering in each other's ears. Like these are like Skinner's. I always say Connor has like this group of like 6 guys. It's like Nuge, Nurse, Dry, him, Skinner, a couple others that he like
Hyman.
is really tight with, right?
Yeah.
And Skinner was one of those guys. But this is business. This is work. This is about winning a Stanley Cup. This is about a paycheck, and things like this happen. Even last night, I saw Connor skate by Skinner and just gave him a quick tap,
his
which
pads.
on ice, on camera during a game, people think, oh, it's just a tap. It's not. It's a big deal. It's like, hey, buddy, like we're both kind of, this is awkward. Hang in there.
Of course.
I got 4 points tonight. I scored on you. Like, I'm sorry, kind of thing.
Oh boy, did he score on him!
But it's a weird dynamic to see this play out. And then the only thing I can add to that is it's nice to be on the other side of Skinner for once. Not that, me, I was a big proponent of Skinner. Like they were saying it on the broadcast last night. Like you can knock Skinner all you want, but the guy went to 2 back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. If he had 2 more saves one year, they would have won a Stanley Cup. If he had 2 more wins the one after, they would have had a Stanley Cup. Every other goalie in the league, except the one that won the Stanley Cup the 2 years in a row, I will not speak his name. He's like Voldemort. Is not as good as him. Technically, I mean, you could say that, right? So, but it was time for a change, and I'm liking how Jari's looking. A couple wins in a row. That's got to fill his bucket.
Here's that interaction. You can show it courtesy of our friends at Sportsnet. But here's the action. This is before the game. McDavid doing an interview, and look at this: arm around his former tendy, a little pat on the back, and then there's the mask.
So weird.
Yeah, it is. Oh yeah, look at that. Man, oh man, it's going to take a minute to get used to seeing all that. But a shout out to Leon Draisaitl. So these were big nights for a number of reasons. Number one, of course, Draisaitl looking for his 1,000th point. I think he's the 106th player in league history. There's just over 100 that have got it, and he gets it here on just kind of a nice a goal where Hyman scores them all right there in the crease. But obviously a huge night for Leon Draisaitl. And Sidney Crosby looking to tie and then surpass Mario Lemieux for career points as well.
This highlight courtesy of Sportsnet. We don't want to get sued here.
Already said it, buddy.
Drag it back, and do you see what I said about gear? So it looks like Jari already has a mask. He's wearing it during warm-ups.
Yeah, but not during the game.
Yeah, because A, he's got to win under the first mask, but B, you want to work in the mask, right? You don't want to. But drag back, that was cool. He does have the mask, but he's working it in during warm-ups.
This McDavid goal is just absolutely filthy. So I did want to show you one other thing. If you bring this back, this was posted on Twitter, and this is the hardest one to see. Kennedy on Twitter, the Twitter handle is Penguin Pit. So this is a Pittsburgh fan account on Twitter, but just says, I feel sick, look at Stu. So for those on the podcast, what we're seeing here, this is the celebration of Leon's 1,000th point, and it is 4 feet from Stuart Skinner, who's wearing his Penguins gear. Obviously, it's just been scored on him, cleaning the crease. But that's got to be something. Sports is business, that's for sure. Yeah. Everybody knows sports is business. But for a guy that, like, you go to war with these guys, your teammates, like you said, 2 Stanley Cup finals in a row, and to see that celebration, that would just, no matter what, that's weird. That's a weird feeling.
It's the worst. And just to have Connor for the first time barreling down at you, I want to, note that just a few shows ago, Ryan, I was saying how Connor McDavid is getting older. He may be peaking. We're never going to see him deking through 5 guys, defenders, or being as top speed as he was before. And you know what? I think Connor may have listened to the show. I'm sorry, Connor. Or maybe Lauren was listening to the show and told him. Because when Connor hears beef, he answers back. He claps back. And so what does he do? Here's a picture of Toronto, the last game against Toronto just a few nights ago. Boom. Through 4 defenders like he's a ghost, like he's invisible, like he's transparent. And then last night at the Penguins game, you just showed that as well, another 4 defenders. It's
unreal what he's doing.
I just want to state, I know it's already obvious, but I always say we're living in the best time to be alive right now in terms of technology and convenience, but also in sports. And I know people say this all the time, and it's not like, I'm not trying to like bow at the altar here, but God damn, I'm so grateful that I get to watch this guy play sports.
Man, you're watching
He is undoubtedly the greatest. I mean, I'm not going to say screw Wayne Gretzky, but I mean, he's the best. Forget Gordy, forget Gretzky, forget Crosby. No,
talk about short memories.
But you know what I'm saying?
Politicians.
He is one of the greatest athletes to ever walk
100%.
on the planet. It
100%.
is insane, and the best hockey player to ever live.
Agreed. I want to get to comments on housing prices. I want to get to more of your responses to our one-on-one with Federal Justice Minister Sean Fraser. A lot of you talking about the snow. Michael says, Calgary's supposed to get a big dump today. I'm looking forward to shoveling twice. Never understood people that shovel twice. I get that it's a little less of a load on your lower back. Maybe that's it. But, you see people. I've got a neighbor that's always out. I think he's retired. He has time on his hands, Johnny, but he will shovel during a snowstorm. I'm the type, I wait till it's all done and then I deal with it. I don't know about you guys, but like Erin has a family member driving this afternoon from Calgary to Edmonton. She says, being the nervous Nelly I am, I'm now cooking like a beast as a cathartic exercise to not let my anxiety take over. Erin, as my grandpa Rudy would say, I wish your family member a safe journey. That's what he always said, safe journey. And then, of course, Peter is absolutely correct when he says, guys, ski hills need the snow. Now, the good news is that our friends at Marmot Basin are seeing an absolute dump right now. And this is great news for any of you that are going to be hitting the highway this weekend to head out to Jasper National Park. Every Wednesday we get to celebrate what's happening out there. It's My Jasper Memories, proudly presented by our friends at Tourism Jasper. And right now, like as we speak this week, I want to make sure that you know that this is your final few days of kids ski free at Marmot Basin. There's no catch here, and it's not just free lift tickets. It's like free rentals. They get a free breakfast. This is incredible. We're showing you some video courtesy of our friends at Tourism Jasper. They were out there, so this is up to the minute. This video was captured like within the last 24 hours. Look at Reed, 6 years old. Look at that smile and the rosy red cheeks. That is a kid growing up with a good understanding of what being Canadian is all about. We encourage you to bring your whole family to Marmot this season and save up until this Friday. That's December 19th. All kids 12 and under ski and ride for absolutely free. Not only that, as mentioned, free rentals and free breakfast in the Caribou cafeteria before they hit the slopes. Free rentals includes everything you need. By the way, there's no catches here. They just want your family to enjoy being out on the mountain. Skis, poles, boards, boots, helmets, everything. To claim this amazing offer, you just go to Marmot Basin's ticket windows. When you arrive, get your free junior lift pass and then bring it over to the rentals desk and the food and beverage team in the cafeteria to take advantage of all these free perks. Will you look at that hot chocolate? Unreal. This is a Monday to Friday deal that will resume after January 4th, minus the free breakfast. So all kids 12 and under are going to continue to receive free lift tickets and rentals. They're doing this Monday to Friday through the year to make it more accessible, more affordable for families to get out to Marmot Basin. So after January 4th, it picks up again, but you have till December 19th to take advantage of it. Marmot Basin, I can't think, I wouldn't even be able to estimate how many times we've been out there as a family making incredible Jasper memories. There's a variety of runs for all skill levels, from like the very first day all the way up to those of you, every family has one, the absolute speed demons, the daredevils. Marmot has it all. And all of the runs converge back to one base, which makes meetups really easy, you can say, guys, listen, like we're meeting at the bottom of the chair at 2 o'clock, or we're going to meet for lunch at noon, or we're going to meet to leave at 4. Whatever the case is, you're not going to wind up with someone way over on this face, somebody's way over off that bowl, and somebody's stuck by themselves at the bottom of a chair. That's not how it's going to go. And I'll knock on wood when I say this, I don't think, John, I've ever stood in a lift line at Marmot for longer than like 30 seconds. Like there's just something about this hill. I mean, those of you that maybe travel across the country or across North America, maybe you're even lucky enough to get to Europe and you love skiing the big mountains. You know that in some circumstances, you're spending a third or a half of your day in the lift lines. Not the case with Marmot. Plus, they've got the Little Rascals nursery that take kids from just about a year and a half all the way up to 6. So you can pop in through the day and you can visit them. They've got activities. They've got the food covered there, so you can ride with the younger kids and the preteens and the teens and the adults in the family, while the wee ones are in the Little Rascals nursery. They also this season have these new 4-week kickstart camps for older kids, vacation camps running over Christmas and spring break. Can you hear the enthusiasm in my voice when I talk about Marmot Basin?
Yes, I can, yes.
Well, it's our family's home mountain, and we just love it there. So you can find out more about the vacation camps, the mountain clubs, and other lesson options at skimarmot.com. That's where you will also see that they have 42 centimeters of new snow over the last 5 days, but it's still snowing right now. 7 centimeters in the last 24 hours, and get mid-mountain temperature, -5. That is phenomenal. You can check out upcoming events there, including Christmas at Marmot Basin on the 20th. They have the Marmot Christmas Market, which will be absolutely spectacular. Plus, you can check out the live cam views if you want to see up to the second what those Marmot conditions look like by visiting skimarmot.com. My Jasper Memories is proudly presented Wednesdays here on Real Talk by our friends at Tourism Jasper. Check out jasper.travel for more on making your way out to Canada's cabin capital. A perfect time of the year is the holidays to visit Jasper.
Oh, the weather outside is weather.
You battled it to get here. I'll go right to something serious here, and Scarlett's absolutely right in our live chat powered by Park Power. She says not to be a downer. It's not a downer, Scarlett. It's a fact. She says not to be a downer. She says, but lots of people die outside in this weather. Had a lot of other people
right
saying,
after.
yeah.
I wasn't making light of it.
No, of course you're not. I'm just adding it to the conversation, and a lot of people are saying as well, it's like really hard to wrap your mind around what you hear from surgeons and the like. We had Dr. Louis Francis Cuddy talking about this right before Black Friday. Well, it was on Black Friday. That was that Real Talk Roundtable we had right before it, I think the day before it, talking about the amputations that happen. I mean, this is real life stuff.
It's wild.
In ERs across the province and in across the country for that matter. It's preventable in many circumstances.
Totally is.
And something that we want to make sure that we have on our radar as we count our blessings, and also we consider where we're going to be able to donate, where we're going to, I see that our friends at Arcadia Brewing Company, a little local reference for Edmontonians in Manchester Square, have been doing a clothing drive, a winter clothing drive. So if you have some extra jackets, mitts, toques in the house, make sure you drop those off at Arcadia.
Yeah, I always said, but this is my new saying, and I don't know if I just compiled it from other sayings, but I think you're lucky, and you should be grateful if you got even one of 3 things. But if you got them all, a roof over your head, someone that loves you. And what was the third thing? Oh, yeah, your health, obviously. And some of these people out on the streets right now that we see don't have any of those things. So this time of year is the best time to, I know you mentioned Boyle Street, but you could just go on the internet and type in and just drop off. It's a great time of the year. I know you don't want to do it around your holidays, but you're getting like new sweaters, new coats, whatever. Yeah. Grab the old ones out of the closet. Grab the old one. Like you went down and got out the Christmas boxes. You saw all those sweaters. You took them upstairs. You wear like 2 of 15. Like people need warmth. And they need it now more than ever around this time of year, so give it up. And also, I didn't want to pat myself on the back with that story about the lady offering the toque to me this morning, but I did say back to her that, hey, I'm just a block over here. I don't need it, but you really should give it to someone that does, because literally walking by me as she's saying it are people who are in need, who are dealing with mental health issues and addiction and houselessness all around where we work. So I was like, hey, I don't need it. I'm a block away. Give it to someone that does.
Yeah. Want to shout out Dexter Martin, who's just joined as a Real Talker and a YouTube channel membership. Thank you very much. We appreciate your support. One of the cool things that my wife Carrie has done in collaboration with our older son Wyatt, Johnny, is anytime that they're anywhere near a store like like one of the big box stores or wherever they can find like those 3-packs or 5-packs of just the warm wool socks or the warm work socks. It's such a small gesture. But then you'll pop through like a coffee shop. Typically, like a Tim's is guys. I recognize there's better coffee shops than Tim's, but Tim's is also the institution that is readily available to people in a ton of different locations. Grab some $5 or $10 gift cards, whatever your budget can accommodate. Take a $5 Tim card, slip it into a pair of warm socks, and then when you see folks out and about, when you see folks that are down on their luck, when you see folks experiencing homelessness, it's a nice, easy way to pass something off just very quickly. Just a dignified and generous interaction. Just a warm pair of socks, a coffee gift card, and you're on your way. And it's something that you can just make part of your regular practice. One of the things I know that Carrie's appreciated about it is it just kind of instills that in our kids to see that at a young age. You know what I mean? Doesn't make the family heroes. I know there's a lot of people that do things like that, but just wanted to plant that seed as something you can do as a small gesture that goes a long way for somebody that doesn't experience some of the same blessings that other people are experiencing, Jill says the UK is living an epidemic of violence against women, and some parts of Britain are starting to treat violence against women as a hate crime. This bringing it back to the importance of legislation there. She says we have normalized this type of violence, but it is targeted. That from Jillian, an important comment here in our chat. We do encourage you to support the YWCA's Rose campaign. It's one that we've been proud to support, and our friends at Hanson Distillery as well through that Whiskey Rose campaign. There's many different ways to support the Rose campaign. You can Google YWCA Rose campaign to learn more about that. Gilles says violence isn't the only definition of hate speech. Telling somebody that they have no right to exist is also hate speech. Remember Anna Murphy was on our show talking about this, a transgender woman, a longtime Politico. She's worked as a political volunteer. She's worked on political campaigns. She was on our show, I'm going to say a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago max, talking about the Notwithstanding clause being invoked to protect transgender laws from the courts. And I saw that after Anna was on the show, the comments that she was receiving on her social media were deplorable, and not something that I think that as a civilized and a civilized nation that seeks to protect its citizens, that seeks to offer basic protections where people can feel safe and secure for who they are, and not where we would promote or tolerate or support the rights for some but no rights for some, right? Like a nation like Canada, it's absolutely indefensible, that type of circumstance. I think in these types of situations, it's important to hear from people who are the targets of this type of hate speech. Like for guys like you and me, that live pretty privileged lives, and we're lucky to have this live chat and a roster of guests that helps us understand things from different perspectives. We may sit there and say, the internet's not all that bad. Or I'm not sure that Canada needs hate speech legislation.
Yeah, I learned a lesson
just,
about this.
Shake it off. Yeah. Shake it off. The internet's not real life. Well, we're not getting it like some people are getting it.
Yeah, I've been saying on the show a lot that, because we spend a lot of time downtown, that the crime isn't as bad and it doesn't feel like danger out there all the time. I actually talked to a woman, close to my age, a friend of mine, I'm not going to mention her name, but because she wasn't speaking bad about Edmonton, but she just talked about how she felt being downtown. And I remember bringing that up as well, saying, I'm a straight white guy walking down the street, from a DJ gig at 2:30 a.m. I feel fine. But she really does not feel safe downtown right now, even during the day and taking transit. So just in regards to privilege, I think we often we walk through life thinking oh, that's not a concern. That's not blah, blah, blah. The internet's fine. Downtown isn't scary. I never have to wait in line at this place. And then you look back and think, oh, wait, maybe that's because I have an easy frickin' ride the whole time. Yeah. Because I'm a straight white dude, walking around. I look back at my life. I've lived a pretty, comparably to other people, I think I've lived a pretty easy life. I'm pretty grateful.
You've navigated some real heartbreak in your life, and you've shared that with us before. But I think
but in terms
generally speaking,
there's been no boot on my neck, so to speak.
Sharon says, I liked how at the Penguins-Oilers game last night, they had the Jewish rabbi and the children's choir sing the anthems. I thought that was really powerful as well. Alberta Girl says, those that push the limits of speech are just worried they're going to have to pull back on the rage farming and the hate speech and the bullying. I think that's a great comment as well.
When people say, well, what's offensive to you isn't offensive to me. It's like, okay, what words do you really want to say out loud? You know what I mean?
You should see. I mean, I called out Jeff Rath, the separatist, in a tweet just about a day ago because I mean he says he's down again meeting with the American administration. He's not using the word negotiating, but he says the Alberta Prosperity Project is down there meeting with members of the American administration. He wouldn't tell us, by the way, who they were when he spoke with me on Real Talk a while ago, but he's promising no income tax and a tariff-free relationship with the United States, with the sovereign Alberta, with a separate Alberta, which is preposterous. It's totally ridiculous. And so I called him out on it on Twitter, and of course I know full well what's going to happen when I do that. I'm going to get piled on by like the 300 loudest mouth breathers in Canada, and that is happening right now. And some of the comments are just like, words that we haven't said for 100 years, guys. Like, you know what I mean? And so I get it. Like some people, the fight for more freedom are people that, what offends you might not offend me. Not the point. Yeah. Not the point. Some of you,
freedom to me isn't like, more freedom to be angry and mean and hate. I don't get these people like that. That's the type of freedom you want. I want to be able to say whatever I want to people and spit on them. And, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Lightning Smith says hate speech is when you say, when what you say targets specific groups or people. Saying fuck Trudeau is political speech and not hate speech. Yeah, I don't think that anyone would argue that fuck Trudeau or fuck Carney, which is like how everyone's been so creatively updating their political perspectives these days with the flag manufacturing business on the prairies. I've never seen anyone say that fuck Trudeau is hate speech. But there are comments that are made about prime ministers or political leaders, and they have crossed party lines. I've seen like horrific comments. I mean, Harper was burned in effigy. The comments about Rachel Notley were atrocious when she was the premier. People say wild things about Jason Kenney when he imposed COVID restrictions, and in particular, what I thought was really interesting was like some of the like worst and most heinous comments were from people with like Christian crosses in their Twitter bios, people that were upset that their church communities couldn't gather. But I do think that there's intuition there. I understand why behind the screen is behind the screen on this one, because I guess they're kind of like Neville Chamberlaining me on this. They're saying Jesperson circa 1945 would have said people are really upset over this Nazi-Jew war, but both sides are to blame. I'm not really sure where I both sides what's happening in Gaza. But I would say that maybe you missed the point behind the screen. But I would say that there's a lot of yeah, but happening with the Bondi Beach thing.
100%.
And the Jewish community was specifically targeted in an anti-Semitic terror attack. And if you can't fucking call it that, then your head's so far up your ass that maybe you should stay behind the screen. Okay? Have I been crystal clear on that right now? You should see some of the comments we've got there. If you think I've been both sidesing the guy, anyway, that obviously got under my skin. Congratulations. I'm sure that will give you short-lived joy over the next 10 minutes of your day till you go troll somebody else. Christine says, I think human nature is such that when it benefits us, we don't complain. If a politician crosses the floor, they will find out what their constituents think at the next election. Goramet says people don't understand how our system works. We vote for individuals representing us, not parties. That might be your perspective. Not everybody feels the same way. Says too many people wear their team jerseys too tightly around their necks. Okay. Politics is a team sport. Politics is a team sport. I'd be curious to know poll-wise. Should we do an unofficial, unscientific Twitter poll? Let's do it. I'll put it on Twitter, and we can announce the results in the next episode of the show. Do you vote for the person, or do you vote for the party? What would you say? Do you vote
the
for
after
the
party?
person?
Like who's going to have the better celebration?
Some people
it's
have
always
noticed.
going to be the liberals.
Some people have noticed
the better weed, the better booze, the better party favors. Always at the liberal parties.
Well, conservative, but I bet you the conservative
Actually,
after parties
green
are
parties
probably more beer shotgunning. The Green Party parties? I know people know that Elizabeth
Anything
May likes
goes.
to party. Yeah.
Everyone's just naked.
Some people have been noticing subtly in the background, although it's not so subtle, in your wide shot, the producer desk shot. What's happening?
That's my medicine. I take
medicine.
Have you ever if this was 1940, I'd take a shot of elixir every morning just to keep my insides growing.
So here's what happens, everyone, and there's a reason why there's like 40 bottles of booze behind Johnny in the studio, is that this is the time of year where the studio's kind of doing double duty. And we're producing the show during the day. We're so grateful to have you here with us. We're having a blast
meeting with
doing
friends
it.
and family.
And then we've got sponsors and friends and family popping by, and it's sort of a house of hospitality.
We're just sick of taking the
bottles
bottles
and into the evenings
out of the cupboard.
And
like,
you can't tear down a bar and set up a bar and tear down a bar and set up a bar.
Don't bother me.
So there you can see we have a good selection. People, MetaModern says, why can't you call it a genocide? And people are just, okay, you know what? If I've learned anything, taking...
Don't do it.
If I want to
Don't
go
do
here.
it.
No, I'm just. You know what? I'm just.
Here's
the only thing I'm hesitating on is that we've received some very powerful messages from Jewish friends of the show and people in positions of leadership with Jewish organizations that are, in part. And the reason why I'm being hesitant right now, this is real talk, guys. I have no problem talking about anything. Stop me in the street. Ask me about things.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't talk about it.
No, I know you're not. I know you're not. And I'm happy to talk about these things. I'm just like, when people write things in and say, this is not to be read on the show or don't share this on the show, then I want to respect that. But I would let you know that people are heartbroken. They're horrified. And many people... in particular, in this context, members of the Jewish faith, of which I am not one, but many of my friends are Jewish, are scared, and they see that people are targeted, and hate crimes targeting ethnic or religious groups are not limited to other countries. We have seen it. People have been murdered or targeted for their faith here in Canada on multiple occasions, and when something like this happens. And this has been the recurring theme of messages and emails to this show that I take very seriously over the past 2 to 3 days. Emails to talk@ryanjesperson.com. You can always send emails in confidence. And there's a difference. Let me know you either want to be anonymous and you're happy to have it read on the show, or you do not want it read on the show, but you're seeking to inform or better inform the host. There's two different ones. And then some of you will just sign your name and say, read it. Let's go. And I respect that too. But a lot of you, members of the Jewish faith, Jewish real talkers, are writing in and saying when 15 people are killed in cold blood at a Hanukkah, the first night of Hanukkah, a celebration on a public, wonderful beach in Australia, a place that has been a gathering place for so long. And like approximately 30 more are hospitalized with very serious injuries. And the initial and the immediate conversations in and not everybody, but in live chats and on our YouTube episodes, et cetera, around the genocide that's happening, Israel's genocide in Gaza. There's not a straight line there. And it comes across, and I'm saying this as an outsider. I'm not a member of this faith group nor this community, but many people that I care very deeply about are. It comes across in a way as justifying the attack. And I part of me really wishes that I could read one email in particular that we've received, but I will respect her request that I not. But to be harping on this and hammering on the Israel-Hamas war and what's happening over there, the horrifying nature of what's been happening over there, but to be invoking it time and time and time again as we are discussing what's happened on Bondi Beach, if you can't understand the Jewish perspective on that. These are Australian Jews. Supriya talked about this. And many Jewish members of our audience did not love what Supriya had to say about this. And that's okay too. It's okay if not everybody loves or appreciates some of the perspectives that are shared on this show, but many of you didn't love that Supriya said, what's happening with Israel's attack on Palestinians has nothing to do with Jews here in Canada, she says, and what's happening, she says, you can hate what Hamas perpetrated on October 7th and the actions of Hamas against Israel, she said, but that has nothing to do with Muslims in Canada. And then people wrote in and said, well, why did you have to invoke Muslims in that? Why did you have to talk about Muslims? Like, Hanukkah is in large part a celebration around an attempt to eradicate the Jews. Why would you even invoke Muslims in that conversation? These are like supercharged conversations. I understand why. At the end of the day, for me, like whether or not, like if MetaModern wants me to litigate whether or not this is a genocide that's happening, this show has covered what's happened there to the point where some of my Jewish friends won't even talk to me anymore. That's a fact because we've brought on Palestinian perspectives, because we've brought on Jewish perspectives. This is an area where a lot of talk shows don't even want to go. They don't want to touch it because of this exact reason. But you're right. Like my focus as 15 lives are snuffed out, including a Holocaust survivor and a 10-year-old girl on Bondi Beach, not to immediately to go to what's happening in Gaza. We can talk about whether or not attitudes, anti-Semitism has ramped up globally since this started happening in the Middle East. And I think that you could probably say, obviously, yes, it has. But I also think it's important to have a frank conversation around protecting religious and minority groups in Canada and around the world. Jill says keeping Jewish people safe is very difficult because there's not a clear line between Israel and the Jewish religion, and somebody deranged will look to punish Jewish people for the actions of Israel. Law enforcement in Australia hasn't said what they found about the motivation of these two shooters, this father-son duo. That's just even a heartbreaker too, isn't it? Like just the fact that it's a father and a son, and you imagine, you use your imagination. We don't know for a fact, but what this son's upbringing may have been like. Ms. Camley says the hate in the world is profoundly disheartening. Says I might sound ridiculous preaching for kindness and love, but they matter. They do matter. Peter says Islamists are not mainstream Muslims. Also true. Let us know what you think about this. I read some of the comments and I get disheartened. And then to be honest with you guys, it also reiterates to me the importance of what we do and the importance of these conversations. Not everything's easy. We know that. You can send us your thoughts to talk@ryanjesperson.com if you're a member of a specific faith community. If you are a Jewish member of this Real Talk community, want to share your thoughts. If you're not, if you've been the target of violence or hate speech or something else that we're saying, maybe something we talked about with the Justice Minister has resonated with you, we want to hear from you. We want real perspectives here on the show.
Well, thanks for addressing that.
Well, I mean, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. And like, people will say, well, you missed this important point. Quite likely, guys. Like, I'm human, right? Like, I miss important points. That's why when I know we say it 3 or 4 times a show, we give our email address. We say, send us thoughts, send us your emails. There's a lot of people that have reached out through this year. I would say like dozens, if not hundreds, Johnny, that have sent in notes saying, and they're always very kind because we're Canadian and everybody's so kind. Everyone says like, I love the show or I appreciate the show. But like you said something that like showed a real blind spot, or you said something that was way off, or you said something that inadvertently hurt us. And I take those, you've seen me, I take them very personally, and I seek to do better. We seek to understand, and we want this show to be providing insightful, empathetic commentary and providing a platform for people to have the exact same.
Of course.
And I think that that's probably also why, and our good friend Senator Charles Adler has advised me against this in past. It's why I take a lot of like just real zingers, like the whole the whole Jespo circa 1945 thing, like something like that just sears into my, like that. Of course. That's like someone punched me right in the fucking nose. Do you know what I mean?
And I like
and I take it very personally. And sometimes guys like a talk show host on a terrestrial radio station would, number one, never read the comment. Number two, never go at it like this at length. But I hope that at least the candid nature of this, or me at least rambling about where my head's at on this, means something to you, to give you a sense of like, as my buddy Law has said all the time, Johnny, and I quote him, and I'll quote him forever, we didn't come here to tipsy-toe in the tulips.
Yeah.
We come here for real talk.
I agree, and you got to address it. And I like how you also respect people's privacy. I have friends who are Muslim. I have friends who are Jews. This whole thing is like tearing people apart. I don't want to say anything other than like, it's just really, like, I'm not a religious person. It's just really sad to see religion like tearing apart this part of the world for so long. But I will say that like most religious people I know are nonviolent. I believe that most religious people are nonviolent. It's just that this mass violence that is happening let's be honest, it's driven by power, identity, resources, and religion just sometimes is used as the banner. That's what I think.
Gormat, and I'm not surprised, guys, and I don't go on these rants to like seek sympathy or anything like that. Obviously, I'm just like responding to comments. This is, if you haven't figured it out already, this show is unscripted, which is, we hope and we think, really one of the biggest and most beautiful parts of this show, and we will always preserve that. Johnny and I on the back nine of these shows, on the back half of these shows, we don't know where we're going to go with it. We have some sort of a general plan, but you take over with our Real Talk live chat.
Where's the plan?
Powered by Park Power. No, I didn't.
Is there a script?
I always keep it in the back of my pocket just in case we need it. I love this from Super Chat Ken. $5, Ken. You're just unbelievable. He says, another beer, you might need it after this one. The empathy and the curiosity are getting more rare all the time, and it takes courage. It's another rarity. Lauren says, when you're an open book, people will try to edit you. Gormat says, thanks for being the face, the voice of Real Talk. I try to listen every day because it does matter. Says, give this show a like. Aaron says, I love the discussion. I love the debate. Even if it's awful subject matter, it is necessary. Kyle's wondering, by the way, says, Jespo asked for differences between Carney and Pierre's governments. Well, there's no Pierre government, but I'll take your point. What their governance may look like, or from their perspective, or how they're approaching it. He says, I wonder what kind of feedback he got. We have something coming, Kyle. We did get responses. We got several responses. Remember when I said that? I basically said it's in the context of floor crossings, but you don't blame some conservative MPs for looking at Mark Carney's style of governance, or what he's actually done, or looking at his budget, or his relationship with Alberta, or blah, 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 blah. The list goes on, and saying, well, he's kind of governing as a progressive conservative. He's not, sort of like Justin Trudeau, a little bit more progressive than conservative, right? A little bit more left than center. It's a different situation. And I did put that out to you. And as is the case all the time, with Real Talkers, when we issue an invitation, you take us up on the invitation. And Kyle, to let you know, we do have them coming in, and we've got them starred in a folder. Look at us getting so organized here. And we will be touching on that before we break for the holidays after our episode on the 27th. Awesome kick in from M. Aitken. Thank you so much in our super chat. Sends Christmas loves and hugs your way. Christmas loves and hugs right back to the rest of you guys. And we want to keep those Christmas love and hugs going to our friends at UCAN Youth Services. They're our charity of choice this year. And by the way, that's an intentional choice on our part. When I got to know Kyle Dubé, may he rest in peace, rest in power, more like it, and saw his vision for what he was doing at UCAN Youth Services, helping young people from 12 to 17, and then different programs for the 18 to 25-year-olds out of harm's way and onto a path of economic independence. We said we are supporting this nonprofit. We're going to do what we can to amplify what they're doing. You can learn more about UCAN Youth Services at ucan.ca, including Kyle Dubé. Man, we love him. Man, we miss him. In honor of Kyle, why not stuff a stocking for a young person entering the workforce? Give the gift of confidence. A $100 stocking covers all the basics that someone starting a new job might need. A coffee gift card, bus tickets, toques and mittens, hygiene kit, a power bank so they can charge their phone, reusable water bottle. You get the idea. Full stocking for $100. If that doesn't fit your budget, pick a specific item off the list at ucan.ca, the bar right across the top of the website. Make Christmas brighter for our youth today at ucan.ca. Solar. A lot of people think that when the snow flies, solar panels shut down. That is not the case. Advancements have been made through the years, including the fact that cold weather oftentimes helps solar panels perform better than regular temperatures. People in the Arctic are going, regular? Cold is regular. Now, of course, the snowfall can factor in, and that's why the team at Kubi has a great analysis of how your solar panels will perform through the year. Their team of expert engineers and electricians are mapping out projects already to be installed this spring, which is why it's always a great idea to connect with them months ahead of when you may be planning to actually pursue those green energy goals. You can get a free solar quote today. Learn more about Kubi, the company itself, busiest in Western Canada, on their website, kubi.ca. That's KUBY.ca. California Closets is where a lot of folks are looking to get organized this holiday season. Johnny, I loved how you said, Arcadia doing their winter clothing drive. It's a great time to just pop into your closet, see what maybe you haven't been using for a while, what you haven't been wearing, but still has some life left in it. While you're at it, why not use these next few weeks to get organized and make a move toward a future that you can get excited about where you can truly enjoy your living space. There's no investment in your space like a California Closets investment. We're seeing right now on YouTube that Murphy bed laundry room overhauls. Can you imagine if you walked into your laundry room and actually felt peace? What about your home office where they can hide your printers, hide your chargers, so it's always show home-esque? California Closets does it better than anybody else. Proudly Canadian-owned, manufacturing everything they install right here in Alberta, and it's all guaranteed for life. That starts with a free consultation. You can book that today at californiaclosets.ca. And you've still got some time to submit your story of Alberta winning. Of course, Alberta Wins presented Thursdays on Real Talk. That means our next episode, our friends at Play Alberta have another story for us of Alberta performing admirably on the national or international stage. Albertans are winning every day at playalberta.ca and on the Play Alberta app. With casino winners every hour, jackpots worth millions in revenue that stays in the province. There's never been a better time to sign up. Right now, Real Talkers exclusively can score a $50 casino bonus when you make a minimum $50 deposit with the code RYAN50. That's RYAN50 for a $50 casino bonus at playalberta.ca or on the Play Alberta app. You got to be 18 or over to play. And of course, if you do gamble, please use your game sense. Alberta girl, I love this. Living the real life rural reality. Says, I don't want to go outside and feed my cows. I don't want to go out and feed the cows. LJ says, by the way, Jespo, you told Johnny to remind you. What about the other Randy that you were going to talk about? What about the Randy you were going to mention? Randy Boissonneau had a tough stretch. The former MP for Edmonton Centre, right? Former cabinet minister.
Which Randy?
Under Justin Trudeau.
One had it tough, one didn't.
Yeah, and so there were these allegations, and I'll just kind of be careful in how I present this, but the show's going to sink its teeth into it. There were allegations that, there was basically malfeasance, impropriety, the nepotism, that a company that Randy Boissonneau was associated with was receiving government contracts to the tune of tens of millions of dollars, and basically that there was scandal about. And it ultimately, let's be honest, led to the end of Mr. Boissonneau's political career, or at least for now. But it did go before the ethics commissioner, and it was investigated. Like there's these circumstances where you may say a politician is alleged to be involved in something, and then they either resign or they lose their nomination for the next election, or they lose the next election, or whatever the case may be, and then it's over. That's not always the case when the allegations include like tens of millions of dollars being funneled to companies that should have had no business bidding for those jobs or submitting those RFPs or those proposals anyway, right? And so the Alberta Girl as well. Ryan, reminder, Randy. Everybody's jumping in on the Randy thing here. Randy Boissonneau wants to talk. Randy Boissonneau has been
over coffee?
Has been exonerated.
What?
Randy Boissonneau has been cleared. At least that's the message out of the Boissonneau camp. And so I just wanted Real Talkers to know that this is on our radar, and this is a conversation we will be having with Randy Boissonneau here on the show. We're going to dig into the details. There was a lot, and you hear from a lot of people.
In what way?
You even heard it here from Minister. Well, we're going to get into it.
Okay.
This is the tease.
All right.
But Minister Sean Fraser said the exact same thing here earlier. And a lot of times for politicians, they're kind of like they're passing the buck or they're shrugging something off. They're getting, Danielle Smith does it all the time. I mean, politicians do it all the time, not just the ones I've mentioned, where they'll say, well, this is a matter before the courts, I can't offer comment. And you'll go, But I understand why. A lot of times, lawyers or legal advisors will say, do not say a word while the court proceedings are underway because it could have an impact on the outcome of the court's decision or what have you. That was the case with Randy. For a long time, he would not speak to it or could not speak to it because it was either going to be before the ethics commissioner or could be before the courts. We are now past that point, and I wanted to let Real Talkers know that this is not a story that was just swept under the rug and ignored, and we will be speaking with him about this in a future episode. The best way to stay up to speed on what's coming up on Real Talk and episodes in future is to sign up for our email, and this is super easy to do. You just go to our website, ryanjesperson.com. I'm showing it to you right now, and you can just, as you scroll down the page, so this is a great way to connect with us. You can find past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You can check out our sponsors, and we always encourage you to support our sponsors. You can pick up Real Talk merch, which is super cool. That's Katie, our general manager, that you'll see on the page there. But John, as you scroll down the page, and it's a nice user-friendly page, we've kept it as simple as possible. You can join our newsletter, and you sign up there with your email address. We'll never give your email address to anybody else, but we do send out update emails. We got one coming before the end of the year. Not as many as I used to send, because it was really driving me into the ground, but we try to send out update emails as much as possible with little scoops and exclusives, and that's the best way to know when we've got upcoming interviews. We have a huge one planned for the first month of January. I'm not saying a word, or somebody's going to try to scoop us on that, but we'll let you know. As we wrap, I also wanted to put this on your radar. On our website, ryanjesperson.com, when you take a look at the events link, you'll find Pond Hockey, and the Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic registration is officially open. It's coming up on Saturday, the 31st of January, out in St. Albert. We have room for 24 teams. It sells out every year, and we want to make sure you're part of it. If you register before New Year's Eve, you qualify for the early bird prize, including 6 tickets to the Oilers game that night. So do it today!
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton, member emerita Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.